gosh, okay. All right, so question 1 asks to find the quadratic equation for the relationship between the height of the ball and I think the horizontal distance of the ball. Pretty much just the x and the y, to find the quadratic equation of it. So this is pretty much all it's asking, to use this quadratic formula right here. You should know this, it should look familiar. And find the A, the B, and the C, okay? So, yeah. And to find that, you need to pull out 3 points from the table. So I pulled out the first 3 points I just saw, okay? So first you have to plug in the point into the equation you have here. Plug in each point to the equation. So for this, and to find like if any can give you like a C, like because we got lucky here. We have a 0 for x and a 4 for y. When I plug it into the equation right here, I plug 0 into here, it would be 0x, here. I mean, it'd be 0 squared and then times a, and anything times 0 is just 0. So this whole thing will be 0. When I plug this in here, it will be 0 too. And all that's left is just C. And the y is pretty much this. This is the y. You can just write this as the y. Actually, I'll leave it here. So the f of x is just the y. So the 0 is the x, and then the 4 is the y. You plug it in. And then since 0 cancel out everything, all you have is C. That means C equal to y, and that means C is 4. Okay, you already found one part of your equation, okay? That's one part already done. And then we move down here. These things, you can't really do that because, they actually have an x and a y. So when you plug in the x here, you get 2 squared, which is 4. So 4a, 4 times a pretty much. And then 2 times b is just 2b, and then c. And then when you plug in your y here, just what the whole equation equals to, you get an 8.4. So you're left with this equation. We're going to use it later. Just keep it like that. And then do the same thing here. Plug in the x here. It'd be 6 squared, 36a now. 6 times b is just 6b. Because when two terms are like this, you're just multiplying them. And then plus c. And then equal the y. You plug in the y here. The y is what it equals to. 12.1. That's why you see me putting equal to the y here every time. And then here, since we already found our c up here, we got lucky we found our c already. We can just use this c, use that c equals 4, and then change these equation that just have a c in it and put 4 for c, because we already know that c equals 4 from the other equation, from this equation up here, from this point. So since c equals 4, you plug it in here. That means you would have to move 4 over to the right, because that's where, you can cancel them out. That's my fault. That's where you can cancel them out. And then you have to move over by doing the opposite, what you call it, opposite of addition, opposite of whatever sign you see here. So since we have addition, opposite of addition, it's gonna be subtraction. Jesus, it's gonna be minus. It's gonna minus 4 on both sides, and then you know this. And then you're gonna be left with 4a plus 2 plus 26 equals 4.4, which is just this equation simplified, because we already know c. We know that c is 4. Plug it in here, and then cancel it on both sides. And then we get this new equation now. It's simpler. 4a plus 26 equals 4.4. And then here, same thing. Plug in c for 4. It's this equation, but you just put in 4. And then get rid of 4. And then you get this. 4, minus 4 on both sides. You get 8.1 now. And then 36a plus b. there's nothing here because this would just be 0. So that's why. Now you get this. And now we go to substitution, okay? This one, the part, it's complicated, but it's not. It's really easy when you really understand it. Pretty much, you're just gonna use one equation, use this equation, and then plug in here, pretty much, by rewriting it. So we're trying to find b now. So to find b, we're gonna rewrite this whole equation here, and then have it so that only b is on this side, on the left side, and then all the other stuff are on the right side of the equal sign. So here we have 2b. After you rewrite, you have to move this over, and to move this over, you have to do -4 because that's the opposite operation. So that's why you have -4 here, and then that plus just what's over here. And then after you do that, you get 2b equals -4a because you move the over, so it's the opposite now. Plus 4.4, which is what you have left here. And then that, and then because you can't just have 2b to find b, not 2b, you got to divide both sides by 2. And then when you do that, you get b equals -2a plus 2.2, because you got to find b, not 2b. That's why you divide it by 2 so they can just have b. And then you do that on both sides because it's an equation. You got to equal. And then you get -2a plus 2 plus 2.2 because, 2 divided by -4, that, and then, So when you get this, when you get b, you found b. You're going to go over here, the other equation that you already have over here, right? You're going to plug this whole thing into this equation. Okay, now it looks crazy, but same thing. You go through the process and you simplify the whole thing. So 3 is going to be, plug this whole thing right here for b in this equation. It's going to be 3a. Because now you're trying to find a because you found b. You're trying to find a now. Plug it in here. It's going to be 36a plus 6, times -2, this whole thing, equals 8.1. Then you simplify it. You do distributive property. That means you're going to multiply this times this, and then this times this also. That's what I got. 36 minus 12a, because negative. And then plus 6 times 2. 6 times -2 is -12, and then you get, shoot, my fault. Then you get that. And then same thing here. 6 times 2.2. You get 13.2. And then this thing just stay the same. And then you combine these two because they're like the same term. They both have a. So you combine them, you get 24. And then here you move 13.2 over because you're trying to just find a. So you don't want this on this. You want this on that side. So you can just have a on this side, pretty much. And then, oh shoot, you do that. So to move it over, the opposite of addition is subtraction. So you just minus this to make it 0, and then do it here too. And then you get -5.1 because that minus that is this. And then you gotta just find a. So you gotta divide this whole thing away so you can just have a left over. So divide 24 on both sides, and you get this big old number, Use a calculator for this to divide it. I use a calculator. And then after that, when you find your a, you go back to this equation, to the b, to what you found your b to equal to, and then you plug in the a here. And then see this line? I'll give you this whole paper when I see you, but this whole line go over here. And then you plug in the a here. So when you do that, same thing. You can use a calculator for this, Plug in the a. This is the a, you plug it in, and then you just simplify it, and then you get this. That's your b. And then after that, you found your a, you found your b, and you found your c, remember, all the way up here, which is 4. And you just plug all of those into the equation right here. so that you can make your equation look like this. You just put your A, what you found, and then you put your B, what you found for your B, and then your C, which is 4. That's all I did here. I plug in all my A, B, and C, and just put it in here. Instead of having A, B, and C, I put those numbers in here. And then because it says rounding to the nearest, I think hundreds, like the first 3 digits after the decimal point, you have to like, you can't have only 3 digits after the decimal point. So you can't have like 4 like here. You gotta round it up. And because this number to the right is more than or equal to 5, I rounded it up to, I rounded 2 up to 3, pretty much. And then just round it up the numbers because it told me to round it up in the question. And then you get this. That's your whole equation. You know, I'll explain it better when I see you, but I'm just tired and I did this whole thing. And then here is the second question. You use another formula that you should know, which is the x coordinate formula for the vertex. It's just b divided by -2a. You plug in your b. You already found your b. Remember back here, we found our b. Where's that? Right here. Found our b right here. Plug it in, and you found our a too. Just plug those into the equation, and you get that. And then divide. Use a calculator for this, and then you get this. You get, I think, yeah. And then you get that. 2. Yeah, you get that. Because negative times negative cancel out each other, so it's positive. And then same thing here. When you get that, I'm gonna use the equation you got from your first answer, this whole thing down here. When you find all your A, B, and C and you plug it in, this whole thing. And then plug in what you found here for the X, for all the X in your equation. And then simplify it. You can use a calculator, you know, simplify the whole thing. And you will get this. And since you have to round it to 1 decimal place, which is the first decimal place, you will get 12.1, because this number is greater than or equal to 5. So you mean you add +1 here and get rid of all the other things. My fault. I was just eating too, but yeah. You know, it's a long video, but let me know if you don't understand. I'm going to give it the other answers in a bit.